Many doubted we'd ever see it, but here it is. The return to glory.
All right, we are back here on the Just End the Suffering podcast. You guys heard Jim Nantz calling Tiger Woods' winning shot at the Masters last year. Masters could be a bit later than usual, but golf looks like it's going to be one of the first sports on the way back. We did get NASCAR back last weekend, but we have golf coming in 2 weeks. So joining right now to talk about the state of the game, our golf guy on the podcast, he works the PGA Tour, Dan DeMartini is here. Dan, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. I'm like a podcast regular at this point, but I love being back to talk about golf because for those of your listeners that like golf, it's great to have it back. It's a great time of the year to be watching, and there's a lot of exciting stuff ahead. And obviously, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out in this new global sports landscape. So, good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to be here. It's good to talk to you about golf, which, I mean, we're, as of date recording, we're about 2 weeks away from the first major event coming back for golf. And how's it, I mean, it's got to be interesting for the idea of golf that they're going to be one of the first sports fully resuming playing after the COVID-19 shutdown, because obviously you're still waiting on the professional sports, baseball, basketball, the NBA. NASCAR is back, and NASCAR is kind of regionalized. Golf is something that has global appeal, so it's got to be interesting to be one of the first back.
Yeah, you know, when you think about the other sports, especially the other televised sports, right? You know, golf, tennis, bowling, those are the kinds, and NASCAR, obviously, the sports where it's you know, basically individual, focus. There's a lot of ways to make it safe to come back, and so when I don't know about you or any of the other listeners, if they've been out to swing a golf club or, swing a tennis racket. It's something you can do basically on your own and do it in a really safe manner. And obviously there's plenty of acreage out there for us to spread out and keep the players so that they're only interacting with, their specific equipment and doing so in a very clean, safe way. So it's great to have golf back. It makes a lot of sense for us to do so. And there's been a lot of effort behind the scenes to make sure, because we are really the guinea pig at the PGA Tour, other than NASCAR, to get back out and get our players in and out safely and make it an enjoyable experience for people watching that are fans of the game.
Yeah, you bring up the fans is a good point, because obviously at this point the tour has basically said that at least for the first month back, there will not be any fans at the tournaments themselves. Obviously the players and the broadcast personnel and tournament officials were necessary to run the whole thing. Is there a hope that, at some point down the line, maybe we can have a reduced capacity of fans coming to the actual courses, or is this more of a long-range setup here where you think, we're going to be doing just turn the course into TV studios, basically?
There's always hope. There's always hope for that. No one, we are so far away from being able to consider that, as the country at large really hasn't even completely opened up. So to just put thousands or hundreds and thousands of fans out there at a time, all trying to spectate around a certain golf hole, is just way too far out of the realm of possibility at the moment. But there's always hope. We want eventually to get back to normal. That's the best way to experience golf. Obviously watching it on TV with your friends and family is incredible, but it's also great to really go out there and just see how special the golfers are on the PGA Tour, and what it takes, the precision, the execution, the thoughtfulness that it takes to do so, and play and win on the PGA Tour every week. So yeah, we are a fan-based organization. We are fan first, and that is the motto. We want to put that experience out there for everyone. So yeah, as soon as we and elected officials and various governing bodies determine that it's safe to do so, we will try to trickle fans back in, and it would be great to do so Ideally, would the fall be a time frame that you could say we're looking at that? Yeah, absolutely. But we just don't know. You've got to take it a week at a time, and we know that for this first few events, it's not a possibility. We've got to just make things safe first, and go from there. So, yeah, there's always hope to bring the fans back this season, but right now we're just not there yet.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a smart way to do it. Just, make sure you get your kinks out of your system. Make sure you have the people who are actually running the event, the players themselves being safe. And obviously, you're coming into, basically at this point, you have a lot of events on the calendar. They've lost 2 months plus of golf at this point with all the cancellations and stuff. And we know the Open Championship has been pushed off for you. We know it's not coming back. Is there plans to rework some of these events that have been postponed into the calendar, or are these things we're just waiting for next year on some of them?
There is a revised calendar out now. So if you go to PGATour.com, you can find that information. Obviously the Masters has been moved to November. For the most part, the tournaments that could be rescheduled and reworked into the calendar were. There are several that just had to be pushed off just because you have to still get through the FedEx Cup playoff. Unfortunately, there's just not enough weeks to make it up this year. So the events that have been rescheduled were very thoughtful. There was a lot of planning. There's many, many departments and many really smart people that were involved in looking at the schedule and working with our title sponsors and the official marketing partners to determine the best schedule to make it so that it's competitive for the remainder of 2020. And we are right back into that full strength schedule for 2021. So if you go to PGATour.com, really take a look at it to kind of see what was done in order to get the most competitive remainder of 2020 possible for the players. So it's going to be a lot of fun if you look at this new schedule, because it's great. There's always amazing events that go on the PGA Tour, the stories, the people that come out of nowhere and make a name for themselves, the recurring stars that are going out and winning multiple weeks in electric fashion, really in cool ways of coming out of nowhere. There's always amazing finishes if you're watching golf on Sunday, but I will say that there's going to be this added emphasis right now from all the players who are going to say, wow, we've got, now the shortened season. Here's a chance for me to get hot at the right time, and there's going to be big time events and plenty of money on the line for me, that if I can just get my game organized for a couple months in a row, man, I could really change the course of my career. So everybody's going to be gunning to come right out and win right out of the gate. So it's going to be a really, really fun event to watch starting at Colonial in 2 weeks.
Yeah, Colonial is the lead off. Obviously, we still have 3 majors to do on the calendar. You said the Masters is in November. I believe the PGA is in August, and the U.S. Open is now in September in New York. You had the FedEx Cup playoffs in there, the Ryder Cup. It seems like all these things are going to be very condensed. I feel like there's going to be a lot of action right on top of one another for all the players.
In this world that we're in right now, which, you turn on the nightly news and you're hearing just awful story after awful story with a little bit of hope. I can say if you're a sports fan and hopefully everything in your life is going okay from the health and the safety of your friends and family, and if you can simplify it down to you're just worried about, what's going to happen in sports going forward, if everything goes according to plan, it is going to be an amazing fall filled with crazy events from all sports. You're going to have, 4, 5, 6 different live sporting events with just incredible players and contests going on all through the fall. So for me, it's kind of exciting to think about, all of these incredible golf events going on at the same time as potentially basketball, baseball, and hopefully hockey and the NFL all at the same time. I mean, it's a sports fan's dream to be able to have all of those. You're going to have you got to have like a minimum of 2 screens, possibly 4 screens going at once. So that, at least for me, is exciting. Hopefully, with that said, the country is back to full strength and we're, recovering the best way possible.
Yeah, I would agree. And obviously, I want to talk about some logistical things, because I have our legal guy, Phil Frey, on just a bit, talk more in deeper detail some of the things that are in the plan. But One thing I've been curious about is obviously there's, as you know very well, there's a lot of people who are usually on site for a PGA Tour event, even without the fans. Like you have lots of people like running sponsor responsibilities. You have people there for the tour. You have people there at the score, people for the clubhouse. So like, what kind of considerations have been taken to reduce the amount of personnel who are actually on site to promote that social distancing is so important to getting back to the way things, or at least a new normal until we have some sort of vaccine or cure for this thing?
So there it's going to be it's how we determined it. It basically the PGA Tour is going to have essential staff only. There will be from the very start of return to play, it'll be players, caddies, but seriously limited extra, I guess, entourage. So family and friends will not be there. Agents they're still determining exactly who else can be on site. I think I heard the number, and don't quote me on this, but essentially they're looking at between the player field, which is usually around 144 players, and staff members at large. The tour will need to be looking at right around or under 400 people. With that number, they're able to space everybody out in the safest way possible. They're really going to be limiting no locker rooms. There's going to be protocols around the way that you show up to the tournament, how you're handling your bag, where to go post round, media center access. There's going to be limitations all over the board. So basically, the experience is going to be very isolated for the players and staff alone. You'll at no point I can imagine there being more than roughly 20 people in an area of one hole, so spaced out accordingly. There's going to be a very, very limited number of people out there, which is going to make for a really interesting broadcast. You're going to get a lot more features of the players really thinking through each shot by themselves. They're not going to be all over each other. There's not going to be fans yelling. There's not going to be as much broadcast in terms of kind of people quickly accessing the players. It's going to be a very pure look of the players figuring out how to win on their own. So just from kind of a staff standpoint, yeah, you're looking at a seriously reduced number of people that'll be on site rather than the normal 1,000 plus there to support the event, vendors, food, hospitality, all of those extra things that normally go into a PGA Tour tournament, not to mention the 50,000 plus fans, 100,000 plus fans that will come through the gates on a normal week. So it's an interesting dilemma for us to work through to decide who is essential staff and who is not, and how do we make sure that the right people are on site to support those that are there, and figure out exactly how many we need to send. So it's going to be it was a very conservative look to get us started at Colonial, and we'll make adjustments week by week of what's necessary and what's safe and what's not. So everybody is the whole thing that PGA Tour's executive team is kind of determined, and you can see this in the return to action plan that went out. There's a press release if anybody wants to read that. The whole thing is that the mindset that the executives have told the players and staff on site is to imagine, practice social distancing as if you're still returning, you're still acting as if you're staying at home. The whole stay at home order that went out. That means as soon as you hit the ground in that tournament town, that you're not going out to public places, you're not staying with multiple other players, you're not staying with other staffers. You isolate yourself accordingly. No rideshare programs, no Uber, taxi. Everything has to be very thoughtful in who you're exposing yourself to while you're going to do your job, which is to play a professional golf tournament. So we're really putting a lot of responsibility on our staff and the players that are going to these tournaments to have a very minimal impact on the local community, so that the testing that occurs there as well is done in a very efficient manner, and that ultimately we don't. The goal is to have no positive tests while we're out there. And that's always the goal, is to do everything in a safe way so that we have an amazing tournament and everybody safely gets in and out of each tournament location.
Yeah, that definitely makes some sense. You mentioned the testing. It's something I was curious about. So, like, what is the testing procedure? It's basically like when they show up to the site, they get tested, and then if somebody's tested positive, they're turned away and sent home for 2 weeks.
Basically, how it's going to work is golfers and caddies and basically all of the officials that will be there on site, they're going to have to complete not only just a questionnaire, they'll also be thermal tested. So I don't know if anybody that's listening to the podcast has been to a doctor's office lately, or even the dentist or wherever. Normally those places, before you come in, somebody is pointing the thermal little radar thing at your forehead to make sure that you're not running a fever. There will be that. There will be either the nasal swab test or the saliva test will be admitted to you upon a site as soon as you arrive to the tournament. And now, a lot of those tests you normally take a couple days to come back, but there's a focus to try to identify local labs rather than sending that off to some of the bigger laboratories for testing that take a little bit longer to get back. And the tour has a whole team that's been determining how to get those test results back quickly in a matter of hours rather than days. And in order to do that, they're basically saying, the tours has this department that focuses on the, return to action plan, and they are able to do so with no impact on the local community resources. So the whole point is that when the PGA Tour comes into town, it's not like, oh man, so say, that's 400 more tests that are taken away from the public. That's not going to happen. The plan is the PGA Tour has identified its own resources for testing, so that it is not taking away from local resources for those that aren't in need of COVID-19 testing. And they've made those arrangements and plans and done so that they've been very, very thoughtful about this return to make it safe for the players and for the community. So that's going to be the plan. There'll be multiple sets of testing that will be determined, and it's very clear that if a player does test positive, that is their private information. The tour does not disclose health information of a player. So if the player chooses to say, I've been, removed from the tournament because I've tested positive, that's on them to announce to the public. But that's anybody's private information. So, but the tour, if you do test positive before the tournament, you will be asked to be removed from the tournament. And if you test positive during the tournament, you will also be withdrawn from the tournament as well. So every precaution is being taken, and the players understand it. I mean, no player wants to test positive and then go out there and potentially infect other people. So, we're all in this together, and we're trying to do this for the betterment of the game and society at large. So, everybody's on board with this plan. The Player Advisory Council is on board with the plan. They were the ones that helped determine how we would do this in the safest way possible. So the tour, has done just an incredible job to get us ready to go back to golf.
Yeah, I do see that it's all comes very thoroughly. I like all the details that are being thought. It's very encouraging to see. And my last one I want to ask you on is basically, we got a little preview of some of the unique things we're going to see from the players themselves at at the Skins tournament. Royal McIlroy and some of the other golfers did for charity over the weekend, where basically they were carrying their own bags, picking their own clubs up. We're going to see a new take on the relationships between the roles the players and the caddies take in a golf tournament right now. So you want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, it's going to be a really unique dynamic, and I think we're going to learn a lot about the character of each player. It's going to feel a little bit more relatable for those that play golf and carry your bag and have to make some decisions kind of on your own. Normally there would be some, long, conversations between a player and their caddy before every shot to try to get the angle, the distance, the height, the wind factor. What did they do there when they shot that on a practice round the day before? Those conversations happen very close to one another. And normally there's a private conversation. There's going to be plenty of times when a player's really just going to have to make the decision on their own. The caddies are obviously going to be at a distance. That'll be a unique thing to see as well. And some conversations can occur, but those last second, maybe I take the 7-iron instead of the 6-iron, and the player's going to have to make that decision and that determination. And these guys, they're so good. They every week on tour, the greatest part of the PGA Tour is that any player that's out there has a chance to win. There's the competitiveness of golf right now is at an all-time high, and it's going to be really interesting to see how guys who really rely on their caddies more often in the past than some guys that kind of know what the game plan is and really just rely on their caddy for some alignment or some yardage information. I'm curious to see how certain players have to step up and how certain players are more comfortable doing it on their own. So we're going to get a really good view of the player themselves and how they view each golf course. So I think it's going to add in for a little bit of excitement to see, if Dustin Johnson is once again putting his bag down and saying, maybe I go 5-iron here and see if it works. I'm excited to see it. I'm just excited that the guys are going back out there and they're going to get their chance to play and really push for an incredible playoff at the end of the summer and a really, as we said, jam-packed fall season of golf. So it's been it feels like it's been a really long time, but as you said, it's only been those 2.5 months. But man, we're really ready to be back out there and watch some golf in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it will be exciting, Dan. Thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, how can people follow you on social media, keep up some of the stuff you're up to?
Sure. So you can follow me on Twitter at Out of Town Fan Pod. You can follow me on Instagram at DMart207. And lately I have been a little bit quiet because obviously there's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes to get this whole thing back off the ground. But the tour's full steam ahead here, and we're really couldn't be more thrilled to get this be one of the first sports back out there and started. We're very confident. We've got really smart people in making these decisions, and I think everybody is just ready to have some sense of normalcy when it comes to seeing sports on TV, and not having to watch highlights of March Madness from 1998. So, which was cool, which was great, but I think we're ready for the live stuff to happen again. So that's what I'm excited for, and hopefully people that are listening to this podcast now know that this is going to be a great event, and it's going to be done in a really safe way. So hopefully everybody tunes in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'll be keeping an eye out for sure. Dan, thanks again. Up next, we're going to take a deeper dive into the return to play questions that are coming up on this as a result of the return to play plan. And talk to our legal guy, Phil Freda, about some of these things right after this.